Hello. So, a few weeks ago, I made a video where I did a charity shop haul, and at the start of that video, I tried to explain why I buy my clothes secondhand. And I said that I was gonna write a blog post and leave it linked below, so if anyone wanted to learn more, they could, go read a blog post where I talk about the situation in more depth. And basically what happened is that I was expecting that blog post to take me like half an hour, maybe an hour to write. It turned out it took me like 3 hours and it's like 3,000 words. And when I made that blog post, I realised that I couldn't not make a YouTube video about it. I wasn't planning to make a YouTube video because I didn't think I had enough to say to fill up an entire video. But now that I've written that blog post, I think I have enough to fill 3 videos. So that's why we're here. So growing up, when I was in secondary school, I, like most people and like most of my friends at least, I got an allowance and I spent a lot of that money on clothes because that was the thing to do. Like, you got this money and you were just expected, I think, societally, to spend it on like clothes and makeup. And that was also just a thing to do with my friends. We would quite often go to our local town, or we would like take day trips where we would go to shopping centres. I remember we would get the train to Westfield and we'd like save up our money until we had like £100, and then we'd go to Westfield and spend £100 on clothes and makeup and stuff. So I am not like, it's not like I've never bought fast fashion. I used to all the time and I grew up doing that. And the thing is that I had no clue that what I was doing was wrong. And that's why I feel like it's important to make this video, because I think people out there are buying fast fashion and they have no clue why it's wrong. I don't think the people who buy these clothes are evil. I think they just don't realise how many bad things there are about fast fashion. So when I was about 18, that kind of age, I started caring more about the environment, and just by doing more research, I learnt more about the problems with fast fashion. So the issue that most people know about with fast fashion is just the awful ethics and human rights associated with it. Most of your clothes, especially if they're made from like generic high street manufacturers, if you look in the label, they're made in a few countries. Bangladesh is a really common one, often China. There's a handful of countries where these clothes are made, and the reason that they're made in those countries is because it's cheaper to make them there. When this started to happen a few decades ago, I think the world, everyone involved, was under the impression that, it means people in the West can get cheaper clothes and people in more developing countries have all these job opportunities suddenly. And so it was seen as this like win-win. But the issue is that these companies now make loads of money and they still don't give their workers any more of it. Like, they choose to make their clothes in those countries because they can pay their workers a pittance. A lot of these people will never be able to escape poverty because they don't have savings. They're living day to day, and so they can't invest, and so they're always going to be stuck with these jobs that have awful working conditions. This is particularly relevant this year because the pandemic hit, and a lot of companies knew that their sales were going to go down. So they suddenly were like, oh, but we've ordered all these clothes, but we don't want them because we can't sell them. So they decided to just not pay for them. The garment workers in these factories in developing countries had made all of these clothes and they'd done the work, and then companies like Boohoo and that lot were just like, just keep them, I don't need them, don't really want to pay for them. No. They were turned away from their jobs. They might not be able to pay their rent. We're talking that dire situation. So one thing that I want to quickly address is I think a lot of people think, oh, but if I didn't buy those clothes, those workers wouldn't get any money at all and it would be even worse. And in some ways you are correct. Like, the pandemic showed that if we just cut fast fashion, if we just like shut down all of those factories, there would be dire consequences. I mean, that's exactly what happened this year, and we don't want that to happen. But when I think about this, I compare it to a lot of other environmental things. For example, like with veganism, it would kind of be awful if the world became vegan overnight. But we want the world to become vegan slowly, and with fast fashion it's similar. We want the world to slowly move away from fast fashion. That move is necessary if we want to live in a better and fair world, but for it to happen overnight would be a bad thing. Like, these people would lose their jobs, and these people need different jobs instead. They need better, more prosperous, more reliable, more sustainable jobs instead. I don't know what the solution is and what these people would do instead, but I think there is a solution, and I think people out there know a solution, and I don't see why we can't come up with a solution. Like, it's a very solvable problem. So yes, when you buy fast fashion, the money is going to those workers, and so in some ways you are supporting them, but you're not really, because all you're doing is putting your money into the hands of these giant companies who don't give a single hoot about those people Instead, you need to go out and support organisations and charities who really do care about these people. You need to help increase this movement that's moving away from fast fashion. That is going to be much more beneficial to these workers in the long term. And I think we should just set the bar higher. The bar is way too low is the issue. The reason all of these companies get away with it is because they're all doing it. It's not like there's one company doing it and we can just call them out. Like, all of these companies are doing it, and that's why they get away with it. We want to help companies who are doing good things become bigger companies so that they can employ more people. That would be really awesome. That would really help those people. But also I think that when you buy clothes at a really low price, you're showing brands that that's what you want. So for example, take like Primark, it's just a really basic example. They will look at their sales and see what's working, and they see that if they're selling t-shirts for £3 or £4 and those are selling, that's what people want. And so they'll continue to produce them and sell them. So the more you buy cheap clothes, the more you're telling Primark that you want cheap clothes, and that's going to make the situation worse. If they were losing money because their products just weren't good enough, then they will think, oh, we need to make our products or our ethics or our better or our prices higher. Like, you know, they need to be losing out. That's how business works, sadly. And so when you buy their cheap clothes, you're not supporting those workers. You're supporting cheap, awful fast fashion. So yeah, those are all the reasons that fast fashion sucks from an ethical point of view. But we haven't even talked about sustainability yet. So let's talk about sustainability, and let me give you even more reasons why fast fashion absolutely sucks. So the main thing here is that it takes so many resources to make clothes, and I don't think people realise just how bad this is. But I think the thing that was more obvious to me was how many clothes we already have that we throw out. Oh, I've never heard this as a stat, but I'm convinced that there are enough clothes on the planet today to clothe everyone for the next 10 years. Like, not in terms of trends, but in terms of when they would break. Like, we could clothe everyone for the next 10 years with the clothes we've already got, I reckon. I don't see how that's not possible if you think about the number of clothes that people throw away. Apparently every week the UK sends 11 million items to landfill. The UK, 11 million items. How is this? It's not sustainable. Sustainable means, can we keep doing it? No, we can't. Sorry, I'm getting somewhat emotional here, but it just makes me baffled. I feel baffled when I sit back and think about how many clothes have been made and how many clothes we throw away each day. It's just so unnecessary, and we're in a climate crisis, and we should be doing what we can, to make the world a better place, and instead we continue to do this. Yeah, and we're pushing this waste onto other countries that have done nothing to deserve it. And then when I think about fashion, my mum often tells me how when she was little, they just couldn't afford more clothes because they were expensive. And it's only since clothes have been started being made in developing countries where the workers are being paid really over wages, the clothes have been affordable and people can suddenly afford to buy loads more clothes. People used to just, they just couldn't afford the amount of clothes they did. A pair of jeans was £40, which, yes, a pair of jeans is quite often still £40, a nice pair, but you can now go buy a pair of jeans in many shops for £10-15. You never used to be able to do that. You had to pay £40 or £50 for a pair of jeans because that's what it used to cost. The reason a pair of jeans cost £12 is because that's not its real cost. That pair of jeans is worth so much more than £12, and the reason you can buy it for £12 is because people are making shortcuts everywhere. Those workers are not getting the wages they deserve. Probably even if it's made from natural materials or even synthetic materials, the people harnessing those materials are probably not getting paid the wages they deserve. The environmental costs are not being taken into account at all. Even if you just think about the shipping costs to get it from one side of the world to the other, as well as all of the resources that we talked about. It's worth more than the £10-12 you're paying for a pair of jeans. Also, just a final bonus thing to end with, another reason why fast fashion sucks is because it's really bad for our mental health. We've built a world where we think the only way to be happy, the only way to live our true style and to compete with other people in society is to constantly be spending our money on buying new clothes. As a teenager, I was spending so much of my pocket money on clothes because I thought that was what I needed to do to make myself happy. And I was just so caught up in this cycle of constantly buying clothes in order to be who I was and to be happy. And I didn't need to be doing that. I wasn't happier I was just comparing myself to other people and thinking, oh, you know, I need to save up so I can go get this latest thing, and stressing because I couldn't afford to buy both this item and this item, and going to cheaper shops so that I could buy more. Fast fashion is bad for the planet, for the people who make the clothes, and also for the people who buy them. Please stop doing it. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't blame you if you had no clue about any of this. I don't for years, but now you know, so please, you don't have to change overnight, but take the time to think about what you've learned here, watch some documentaries about it, and really start to question why you're buying fast fashion, and maybe buy less of it. I'm going to make another video where I talk all about the different ways of buying clothes, and I'm going to compare which is the best way. So for example, should you buy like high-end clothes? Should you buy sustainable clothes? Should you buy second-hand clothes? So if you've watched the video and you want to learn what you can do to change, if you currently buy a lot of your clothes through fast fashion and you want to stop doing that, I will be making a video. So if you subscribe, you'll see that, and then we can talk about how you should be buying your clothes instead. Thank you for watching. My name is Louise, and you can find me at Louisa's Life on Instagram and YouTube.